All right, today is a special TBR video. We're going to talk about all my obligations, and then I did this month a TBR swap with Evie from She Was Only Evie, one of my best bookish friends, the person who is responsible for a large stack of books next to me on the floor. If you haven't seen that book haul, that was very unexpected. And so when she asked, can we do a TBR swap a couple months ago, I'm like, yeah, sure, especially since I knew she would give me books outside of my comfort zone. And after a month of reading a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, I think this will actually be really good to break up some genres, especially with some of my obligation reads, and it should be really fun. I have not watched the video. So she sent me a video with the books. I know what the books are. She sent me the books, but a video with why she picked those books for me. So I'm going to react to that with you guys. But first, I'm going to go over the books that I also need to read besides these. I believe she gave me 5 books to read. So then I have another 6 that are required. And then what I might do if I have time is use Becca's Bookopoly board, or I might use that to help me pick what order I read things in. I'm obsessed with TBR games and I never get to play them. I've now incorporated it into how I pick how the polls are put together for my TBR picks for my patron because I just want to play TBR games. So I put together a video for them this month to show them how the poll came together by using the little Monopoly board. I don't know. It was fun. Anyways, into the books. For my local book club, I need to read The Sweetness of Water. This is a historical fiction that was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. Not this year, I think last year. Actually, no, it was longlisted, not shortlisted. Regardless, people thought it was good. And so it's a historical fiction. It's Reconstruction era United States. We follow 2 black characters after they are no longer enslaved. And I think there are some former soldiers that we get to follow. I think Confederates. And I don't know. It seems like it's going to be one of those bittersweet historical fictions. It's gotten good reviews. I'm interested in it. I have The Way Spring Arrives. So what I decided with this TBR game is that if I rolled doubles, normally for Bookopoly you have to add another roll. I decided if I rolled doubles that I would have to pick 2 books from the poll, the top 2. And these 2 actually tied exactly. So the first is The Way Spring Arrives, which is an anthology I really wanted to read. So this is exciting for me. I went to the bookstore to pick up a copy the other day and they were out of stock, which yay for the book, but boo for me, so I have to wait till they get more stock. So this is speculative works by Chinese women and non-binary authors that are translated, and I'm just really interested in it. It has apparently nonfiction essays that are kind of the selling point of this collection, so I'm curious about it. And then the other one, we'll see if I DNF this one or not, since I've been on a DNFing kick lately, but this is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. It's not even out yet, but it was nominated by an Elantrian tier. It won on the spinning wheel, and then people voted for it. I don't know, when I read the synopsis of this, it's Stephen King kind of writing, a normal fantasy plot. I don't know, we'll see. Sometimes Stephen King works for me, and sometimes he doesn't. That's just how it is, and I haven't read a fantasy by him since Gunslinger, and that didn't go well. And this seems more traditional fantasy, more this person was having, a normal day until X happened, I think. Who knows? We'll see. It's kind of a generic cover, too. I don't know. I want to be optimistic, but every part of me is so nervous, and it's over 600 pages, and I'm okay. Similar fantasy stuff that I just have to get done, and this is happening. Stephanie, I know we haven't talked about it, but it's actually time. We need to read the last Robert Jordan installment in Wheel of Time, and I can't remember what it's called. Is it Knife of Dreams? I think so. I think we already had Path of Daggers, so I think this one's Knife of Dreams. I don't know. You see this picture. This is it. This is in theory, not the slog. This is theory out of the slog. So I need to listen to this. That needs to happen, because then I'll be happy if I don't read another Wheel of Time book this year, because next year I can just read the Sanderson ones. Although it wouldn't be bad if I read one more Wheel of Time this year and kept that going, so then I only had 2 to read next year. I really just want to get Wheel of Time done at this point. I want to be done with it, but I also don't want to just, do a book a month. That would probably burn me out, and I would be quite miserable. Another book that I get to read, which excites me because it keeps going with the Mistborn Era 2 read-along, is Shadows of Self. I'm very excited. I really liked my reread of Alloy of Law, and Shadows of Self, I don't remember anything. I think I remember stuff in Bands of Mourning more than Shadows of Self, so this should be a fun reread. This should be a good time. I'm just curious. I just want to have a good time. It's fun. This will be a great break in some of the heavier, dense things I have. And for the nonfiction book club that's held by Jess Owens, and I just co-host on it, is Ace. So we're going to be reading this in September. So those are all the obligations, and so now I'm going to put on my headphones and react to this video that Evie put together.
I don't know if Angela's done an introduction. I'm sure she has. If she hasn't, I'm not Angela. I am just bringing you Angela's TBR, or at least some of it. So what Angela and I have done is we have done a TBR swap, and we picked out 4 books for each other, with a 5th kind of honorable mention as a substitute, fill in if you have time type thing. But for sure, definitely 4 books that I am hoping that Angela will read, enjoy, if not outright love. I try to pick books that obviously I think that she'll love, and that I don't think that she would pick on her own. So I'm gonna go in order of least most excited for her to read, and then to most excited for her to read, because I'm excited for her to read all of these, but there are some that I'm equally excited and nervous, and the nerves correlate to the level of excitement. So anywho, enough of that. I should start with the technically 5th one that I chose, but this isn't a required book on the TBR. It's just if you want to read it, you can read it. And that is It Would Be Night in Caracas by Karina Sáenz Borgo. And this is I guess, a crime novel. I've never read the book. The only reason I chose it as an option is because I know that Angela has been looking for Venezuelan literature, whether translated or not. And I found this, and I was like, hey, Angela, it's from Venezuela, and it's translated. Here you go. So maybe she'll like it. I don't know.
She is right. I've been wanting a Venezuelan author book for years and years. I did not know it was a crime book. We'll see how that goes. I don't think I've read a crime book in a really long time. But it's kind of interesting. When I looked at it, I thought it would be like a literary, so I have no clue. But I'm excited. I know she said it was optional, but she sent me a copy, and I'm going to read it.
But getting into the actual books that I chose for her to read, the first one that I have here is What Dreams May Come by Richard Matheson. And I know that Angela has read I'm Legend, and I can't remember if she liked it or not, but
I did like it. I like it way better than the movie. I do not know why the movie changed it from vampires to zombies. I don't quite get that logic. But anyways.
This is the first and only Richard Matheson book that I have read, and I read this a few years ago. I had seen the film, at least 10 years ago, and I absolutely adored it, the film with Robin Williams. But I only saw it once, so I don't remember a lot of it. But I did realize that somehow that it was based on a book, and I got the book, and I finally read it, and I adored it. This is the story about a man who dies, and it's really just his journeys through the afterlife, and through those journeys, also trying to find his wife again. There's this kind of Orpheus, Eurydice type aspect to this novel and to this story that I think Angela will really like, because she and I saw Hadestown, and hopefully that will aid in her liking of this novel, but we'll see.
It's funny because when I was putting this together, I hadn't watched this video yet, but I did have the stack of books, and I was like, hey, Ryan, we have a book by the I Am Legend author now. And he's like, oh, is that the Robin Williams movie? I'm like, yeah, was it a good one? He's like, I don't know. I saw that when I was really young. He said he thought it was depressing. And based off what Evie has just said, yeah, it doesn't seem like the most hopeful thing. And I did like seeing Hadestown. So I'm curious. I like I said, I did like I Am Legend, but I always hold that you never know if you like someone's short work, if you're going to like their novels. So we'll see.
The next one that I have is The Icarus Girl by Helen Oyeyemi. This is the first, and so far only, Helen Oyeyemi book that I've read so far. All of these novels actually are the first books that I've read by these authors, so did not plan it that way. But this book is Oyeyemi's debut novel, And it follows a young protagonist, specifically a 9-year-old biracial girl from the UK. Her father is white and her mother is from Nigeria. And this just follows her as she's dealing with her childhood, and she's growing up. She's 9 years old, and she makes an interesting friend, and this friend travels with her to visit her mother's family in Nigeria. And there's this kind of naive, innocent quality to this story, but at the same time it's very creepy, because it's kind of, there are a lot of speculative elements to this novel. I would even say horrifying, to a degree, but it does include a lot of, at least from what I know, Nigerian folklore and mythology within the story, and it's just really, really well done. Helen Oyeyemi has this really wonderful ability to create such a young character that is so compelling, that feels so real in her age, without with being so young and naive and just innocent, while still being wise in a way. And Oyeyemi, as the author, in no way, shape, or form looks down or conveys this character in a like a superior way. She doesn't look down on the character Jess in any way. And it's just, often writers in general, who are writing younger characters, can have a tendency to write young characters that you feel like they're kind of talking down to them in a way. And this novel does not feel like that. And it's just such a good novel.
It's interesting what she brings up. I always feel like when I read young characters in literary works or even fantasy, that the readers look down on the characters. And I usually actually like how they're portrayed in the book. But I actually do love a coming of age story, or like just someone living their life as a young person. The speculative elements and how they might be related to Nigerian folklore really interests me. And yeah, this is definitely her debut, because it was the one book I couldn't find in my bookstore, and it's like the one book that they don't really have like audiobooks for when I was looking from the library. But I'm excited, especially after that description, because I truly didn't know much about any of these books, except for I think maybe the next one, if only because Leslie and Evie talk about it enough. $10 on what it is, you're about to find out.
The next one that I have is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. This this is just a wonderful novel. I have since read all of Zora Neale Hurston's fiction, and Hurston has this ability through her novels and through her fiction in general to explore society through these characters that is just so incredible, not only with its timelessness, but also for the time in which it was written. It's just so good. So Their Eyes Were Watching God is a story that follows Janie Crawford as she is living in the South, specifically in Florida, and it follows her through her 3 marriages. It's not a spoiler, it's in like the flap of the book. And yeah, and it's just a really well done character society exploration. And on top of that, it's just has one of my favorite things in books, in literature, which is a nested narrative. So Janie has come back to the town that she grew up in, and she's telling her story of how and why she left, and then how and why she came back. It's gorgeous. It's timeless. It is a classic. It is just incredible. Plus, if Angela likes this, I will hopefully have a better gauge on whether I should recommend her to read Persuasion by Jane Austen. So
That's interesting. I wasn't expecting the Persuasion comparison, potentially. And I mean, I already knew she loved it. And I don't actually feel like I ever get spoiled in literary books or classic books. I don't know. I actually knew a little bit about this because I tried to recommend it to a local book club, and we didn't quite vote on it. It got close. But I am excited. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I really love the edition that she got. It's the one that she's holding in the video. I just like the French flaps.
And the last one that I have here is Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones.
And if we thought Stephen Graham Jones wasn't going to make the list, we were all kidding ourselves. This also happens to be the patron buddy read this month, where I do a spoiler vlog, so she was very kind to double up on that for me.
This is my favorite Stephen Graham Jones book. And again, narratively, it's just a really cool narrative structure where there are alternating chapters of first person and then third person, and you're following this nameless character who is on the cusp of manhood, and his family just so happens to be a family of werewolves, and he's just kind of fretting and worrying and wondering, will he turn into a werewolf? Will he change? And he wants to become a werewolf, and so he is so concerned, what if I don't turn into a werewolf? And again, this is a younger character. He's 15 on the cusp of 16, and he feels like a young character, like in the realest of ways, without being demeaned in any way. And I just love this novel. It is a coming-of-age novel in the horror genre space. And this is the novel that started my love affair with Stephen Graham Jones's novels. And I really, really hope that Angela loves this book as much as I do. And if she doesn't, I'm going to be so disappointed.
Well, there it is. I'm hoping to like Mongrels. I do like coming-of-age stories, as I said earlier in this video. And a lot of my friends like this story too. Like, a lot of people were talking about this as we were picking for it for book club. It's been on my shelf. I wanted to read more horror, wanted to read more works by Indigenous authors. It's about time. And if it wasn't this, it was probably going to be like Mapping the Interior or something, because that's also gotten good buzz. But thanks, Evie, for filming that and giving descriptions of all these books that I literally knew nothing about. Like, if it was just me here, I would just be like, and then this book that Evie told me about. And then this book Evie told me about. What are you planning to do this month? I will say this month is a little obligation heavy for my personal taste, but I should have the time. And I think everything is varied enough that I should keep the momentum up. I'm not going to DNF any of like my true obligations, but I am maybe going to sprinkle in some romance or some fantasy or sci-fi as my mood demands. This is definitely probably not everything I will read, especially because I'm taking some time off in September, and hopefully I'll use that to read, but I also might use it to play a video game that usually sucks up all of my energy because I kind of want to. But if you made it this far and just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, leave a flower, because is that a flower? I don't know. Ooh, leave wings or a bird for the Icarus one, which I don't know if Evie noticed this, but we had Icarus, and then she mentioned Eurydice and Orpheus, so we've got a lot of Greek symbolism in some of these books that were brought forth. But that's it for this one. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.